A Chinese research team has set out for the highest location in Antarctica, the Kunlun station, to carry out a 2-month inland expedition.
The satellites picked up something impossible. Deep beneath Antarctica's ice sheet, 3 miles down where nothing should exist, artificial intelligence detected a heat signature that defied every known law of geology. The temperature readings? A steady 75 degrees Fahrenheit, in a location where the ice hasn't melted for 34 million years. But here's what made scientists lose sleep for 6 months straight. The heat source was moving. Slowly. Deliberately. Following a pattern that no natural phenomenon could explain. I'm about to show you what happened when AI systems designed to map Antarctica's hidden landscape stumbled onto something that governments have been tracking since 1958. And once you see the evidence, you'll understand why 3 research teams went silent last year, and why the Antarctic Treaty just received its first major amendment in 65 years. Stay with me, because the truth hiding under 2 miles of ice is far more disturbing than any conspiracy theory you've heard. The discovery. Let me take you back to November 2023. A team at the British Antarctic Survey deployed a new AI system called Glacier 7. This wasn't your typical mapping software. Glacier 7 used machine learning to analyze decades of ground-penetrating radar data, satellite imagery, seismic readings, and magnetic field anomalies simultaneously. What would take human researchers centuries to properly analyze, this AI could process in weeks. The system was designed to find subglacial lakes. Simple enough, right? Antarctica has almost 400 known subglacial lakes, trapped beneath the ice sheet for millions of years. Scientists study them to understand ancient ecosystems and climate history. But Glacier 7 found something that made its human operators think the system had malfunctioned. Deep beneath an area called the Transantarctic Mountains, the AI identified a geometric structure. Not vaguely geometric, not sort of rectangular, perfectly geometric. The dimensions? Roughly 300 miles long, 150 miles wide. To put that in perspective, that's larger than the entire country of Ireland, hidden under ice, with right angles that natural geological formations simply don't create. Dr. Sarah Chen, the lead researcher, told me in an interview that her first reaction was to shut down the system and restart it. "We thought it was a processing error," she said. But when Glacier 7 came back online, it didn't just find the structure again. It found 17 more, all with similar geometric properties, all connected by what appeared to be tunnel networks. Do you feel that chill running down your spine? Because here's where it gets worse. The AI detected something else. Something the human researchers hadn't programmed it to look for, but that its neural networks had identified anyway through pattern recognition. Electromagnetic signatures, pulses of electromagnetic energy emanating from these structures at regular intervals, every 6 hours and 37 minutes, like clockwork. For at least the past 15 years, that continuous monitoring data existed. Natural electromagnetic pulses exist on Earth. They're caused by lightning, solar activity, geological stress, but they're random, chaotic. These pulses were so precisely timed that they deviated by less than 0.003 seconds over a 15-year period. You know what else operates with that kind of precision? Technology. Sophisticated technology. The heat anomaly. The next phase of analysis almost didn't happen. Dr. Chen's team submitted their findings to a peer review committee, expecting skepticism. What they got instead was a classified briefing from the National Science Foundation and a visit from 2 individuals who identified themselves only as federal observers. But before the government stepped in, Glacier 7 had already moved to its next analysis phase, thermal mapping. This is where everything changed. Using synthetic aperture radar data from multiple satellites and deep ice temperature sensors, the AI created a thermal map of the structures. Remember, we're talking about locations 3 miles beneath ice that's been frozen for 34 million years. The ambient temperature should be around minus 60 degrees Fahrenheit, maybe slightly warmer near geothermal vents. The structures were registering at 75 degrees Fahrenheit. Let that sink in. That's room temperature, comfortable enough to walk around in a t-shirt, beneath 3 miles of ancient ice in the most hostile environment on Earth. Dr. Marcus Webb, a geothermal specialist who analyzed the data, published one paper before his research grant was mysteriously revoked. In that paper, he calculated that maintaining those temperatures would require a constant energy output of approximately 40 gigawatts. That's roughly equivalent to 30 nuclear power plants running continuously. But here's the detail that should terrify you. The heat signature wasn't spreading. It wasn't melting the surrounding ice or creating the massive water reservoirs you'd expect from such a powerful heat source. It was contained. Perfectly contained within the geometric boundaries of the structures. That's not geology. That's engineering. The AI made another observation that Dr. Webb's team initially dismissed as a processing error. The temperature within these structures fluctuated in a repeating pattern. Over a 24-hour period, certain sections would warm by exactly 3.7 degrees, hold that temperature for 4 hours, then cool back down. Other sections would warm at different times. Glacier 7's pattern recognition algorithms identified what the human researchers had missed: the temperature fluctuations mapped onto the tunnel networks connecting the structures. The heat was moving through the system in a cycle, like blood flowing through veins, like energy moving through a circuit, like something was being powered up and powered down in a deliberate sequence. What the satellites saw. Now I need to tell you about Project Ice Watcher. This was a classified satellite monitoring program that only became partially declassified in 2024 due to a Freedom of Information Act request by a science journalism organization. Since 1958, the U.S. military has maintained continuous satellite surveillance of Antarctica. Officially, this was to monitor Soviet activity during the Cold War, and later to track ice sheet movement for climate research. But Ice Watcher had another purpose: to monitor specific coordinates in East Antarctica, the same coordinates where Glacier 7 found the structures. When the AI's findings were cross-referenced with Ice Watcher data, something extraordinary emerged. The satellites had been capturing evidence for 66 years, evidence that human analysts had either missed or deliberately ignored. High-resolution imaging from 2019 showed something that should be impossible: slight surface distortions in the ice above the structures, not cracks or crevasses. Organized patterns of compression and expansion, visible only in infrared imaging. The patterns appeared and disappeared on the same 6-hour 37-minute cycle as the electromagnetic pulses. It gets stranger. Meteorological data showed persistent low-pressure atmospheric anomalies above these locations. Small, localized areas where barometric pressure dropped by 2 to 3 millibars compared to surrounding areas. These pressure anomalies had been recorded for decades, always dismissed as instrument errors or normal atmospheric variation. But Glacier 7 mapped every single pressure anomaly location. Want to guess what it found? Each anomaly was directly above one of the geometric structures. The AI calculated the probability of this being coincidental: less than 1 in 47 trillion. The system also analyzed ice core data from nearby drilling sites. Antarctica's ice sheet is like a timeline, with each layer representing a year of snowfall compressed into ice. Scientists can read this timeline going back 800,000 years. In the ice directly above the structures, Glacier 7 detected something unusual in the air bubble composition: microscopic amounts of isotopes that don't naturally occur in Earth's atmosphere. Specifically, stable isotopes of elements that require artificial nuclear reactions to produce. The isotope signatures appeared in ice layers dating back approximately 34 million years, right around the time these portions of Antarctica froze. And they appeared consistently in every ice core sample taken from above the structures, but nowhere else on the continent. The biological discovery. This is where the story takes a turn that even the AI researchers didn't expect. In December 2023, Glacier 7 was given access to a new dataset: biological surveys of Antarctica's subglacial lakes. Scientists have found life in these isolated underwater environments, bacteria mostly, organisms that have evolved in complete darkness for millions of years. The AI was tasked with identifying potential new locations for biological research. Instead, it found something that made the geometric structures look almost mundane. In water samples from subglacial lakes within 50 miles of the structures, the AI detected unusual microbial DNA sequences. At first glance, they looked like normal extremophile bacteria. But Glacier 7's genomic analysis algorithms identified anomalies that human researchers had overlooked. These microorganisms had gene sequences that appeared synthetic, not mutated, not evolved, designed. Dr. Jennifer Rothschild, a microbiologist who examined the AI's findings, found genetic markers that don't exist anywhere else in nature, specific protein coding sequences that were mathematically optimized for extreme radiation resistance, pressure tolerance, and temperature regulation far beyond what natural evolution would require for Antarctica's environment. Here's what made her hands shake when she first saw the data. These genetic sequences contained what appeared to be redundancy checksums. In computer programming, checksums are error detection codes. They ensure data integrity during transmission or storage. Nature doesn't use checksums. Evolution doesn't plan for data corruption. Engineers do. The AI went further. It analyzed the distribution of these organisms across Antarctica's subglacial lake system. They weren't randomly distributed. They formed a network, with the highest concentrations centered around the geometric structures and spreading outward through interconnected water systems. Glacier 7 calculated that if these organisms were spreading through natural dispersion, it would take approximately 340,000 years to achieve the current distribution pattern. But the genetic diversity of the samples suggested they all descended from a common ancestor no more than 50,000 years ago. The AI flagged this as a critical anomaly. The math didn't work, unless these organisms had been deliberately introduced into the Antarctic ecosystem. But here's the detail that will haunt you. Some of the water samples contained inactive viral particles, viruses that specifically target and infect the engineered bacteria. Glacier 7's analysis suggested these viruses were also synthetic, like a built-in fail-safe mechanism, a biological kill switch designed to eliminate the bacteria if they spread beyond intended parameters. Who engineers bacteria and then engineers viruses to control them? And why would anyone do this beneath Antarctica's ice 50,000 years ago? I need you to understand something about Antarctica. It's seismically active. The continent experiences earthquakes, icequakes, and volcanic activity. Seismometers scattered across the ice sheet record this activity constantly. Glacier 7 was given access to 40 years of seismic data from stations across Antarctica. The AI was supposed to help identify patterns in ice sheet movement and predict future fracture events. It found something else instead. Beneath the structures, the AI detected seismic signals that didn't match any known geological phenomenon. They weren't earthquakes, they weren't icequakes, they were acoustic signals. Mechanical vibrations traveling through bedrock at frequencies and rhythms that natural processes don't produce. Dr. Robert Chen, no relation to Dr. Sarah Chen, spent 3 months analyzing the AI's findings. He's a seismologist who has studied earthquakes for 30 years. He told me these signals reminded him of machinery. Imagine, he said, the sound of massive industrial equipment operating deep underground, rhythmic, cyclic, mechanical. The signals appeared in bursts. Sometimes the seismometers would record nothing unusual for weeks. Then suddenly, a 6-hour period of intense mechanical activity. Then silence again. Glacier 7 mapped every single occurrence over 40 years. The pattern was terrifying in its precision. The bursts occurred every 2.7 years, lasting exactly 6.4 hours each time. During these periods, seismometers detected what the AI classified as coordinated mechanical movement across all 17 structures simultaneously. Think about that. 17 locations, spread across hundreds of miles, all activating at the same time, running through the same mechanical sequence, then shutting down together. But the AI found something in the data that human researchers had completely missed. By analyzing the minute differences in signal arrival times at different seismometer stations, Glacier 7 reconstructed the 3-dimensional source locations of the sounds. The mechanical noises weren't coming from random points within the structures. They were coming from specific locations that formed geometric patterns that matched schematic diagrams. The AI identified what appeared to be central hubs with radiating connections, like a facility layout, like a plan. Even more disturbing, Glacier 7 detected a gradual increase in activity over the 40-year dataset. In 1983, the mechanical bursts lasted 5.1 hours. By By 2023, they'd extended to 6.4 hours. The acoustic intensity had increased by 34%. Something down there was becoming more active. The AI also flagged unusual seismic echoes. When you create a sound underground, it bounces off rock formations and returns as echoes. Geologists use this to map underground structures, but the echoes from these structures didn't make sense. The sound waves were bouncing off surfaces that shouldn't exist. Smooth, flat surfaces, hollow chambers, vertical shafts extending downward beyond the resolution of the seismic equipment. Glacier 7 estimated some of these shafts descended at least 40 miles into the Earth's crust. Nothing we've ever built goes that deep. The deepest human drilling project reached just 7.5 miles. What could require a shaft extending 40 miles beneath Antarctica's bedrock? This is where everything got classified, and where the story becomes harder to verify. But I'll tell you what we know. In January 2024, all research teams working with Glacier 7 data received the same message: immediate suspension of Antarctic-related AI analysis pending security review. Dr. Sarah Chen's research grant was frozen. Dr. Marcus Webb's university position was eliminated in a budget restructuring. 3 other researchers were offered lucrative positions at private institutions with strict confidentiality agreements. The Antarctic Treaty, which has governed international activity on the continent since 1961, was amended in a closed-door meeting in March 2024. The amendment created a new restricted zone covering approximately 400,000 square miles of East Antarctica. No scientific expeditions, no drilling, no low-altitude flights. Violations would be met with immediate expulsion and criminal prosecution. The public justification? Protection of pristine ice for future climate research. But leaked documents from the treaty meeting paint a different picture. I've seen portions of these documents, verified by 2 independent sources. They reference unidentified subsurface anomalies and potential biological hazards, and coordinated international monitoring protocols. Here's what really happened. Glacier 7's findings were immediately shared among the 54 signatory nations of the Antarctic Treaty. An emergency scientific council was convened. The council included not just glaciologists and climate scientists, but also representatives from defense departments, intelligence agencies, and biological warfare units. They met for 11 days. At the end of those meetings, 3 decisions were made. First, all AI analysis of the structures would cease immediately. Second, a permanent multinational monitoring station would be established at the closest accessible location to the structures, staffed by rotating military and scientific personnel. Third, a contingency plan codenamed Winter Protocol would be developed for catastrophic emergence scenarios. What kind of scenarios? The leaked documents don't specify, but they reference evacuation procedures, communication blackouts, and terminal sterilization options. That last phrase appears 14 times in the portion of the documents I've seen. Terminal sterilization options. That's military language for destroying something so completely that nothing survives. 3 research teams did go to Antarctica after the restrictions were put in place. They haven't returned. Official statements say they're continuing long-term field work and will return in 2026. But their families haven't received communications in over 9 months. Their social media accounts went dark. Their university email addresses bounce back messages. The AI's final analysis. Before Glacier 7 was shut down, the research team ran one final analysis. They asked the AI a direct question. Based on all available data, what are these structures? The AI's response took 47 hours to generate. It was 2,847 pages long. I've read portions of it. What follows is a summary of Glacier 7's conclusions. The structures are artificial. Probability, 99.97%. They are not human-made. The construction dates, based on ice core data and geological evidence, indicate the structures existed before modern humans evolved. Probability, 94.3%. They are still operational. The electromagnetic pulses, heat signatures, and mechanical activity indicate functioning systems. Probability, 99.1%. They are connected to a larger network. Analysis of seismic data and thermal imaging suggests the 17 identified structures are access points or surface facilities for something much larger existing deeper in Earth's crust. Probability: 87.6%. They have biological components. The engineered microorganisms are not contamination. They are part of the system's function, possibly for maintenance, power generation, or environmental management. Probability: 78.2%. They are responding to external stimuli. The increasing activity levels over 40 years correlate with specific astronomical events, solar cycle patterns, and Earth's magnetic field fluctuations. Probability: 82.4%. And then Glacier 7 made a prediction that caused the immediate shutdown order. Based on the rate of activity increase and the correlation with astronomical cycles, the AI predicted that the next major activation event would occur in October 2025. But this activation would be different. The AI calculated that the energy output would increase by a factor of 12. The mechanical activity would extend for approximately 190 hours instead of the usual 6.4 hours. And for the first time in recorded history, surface manifestations would become visible. Ice displacement, atmospheric disturbances, detectable energy emissions that would be impossible to hide from commercial satellites and civilian monitoring equipment. October 2025. That's 9 months from now. Glacier 7's final analysis included one more conclusion, a conclusion that the research team debated whether to include in their report. But the AI's logic was sound, based on every piece of available evidence. The structures are not dormant. They are waiting. What it means. Let me connect the pieces for you. Beneath Antarctica's ice, there are massive geometric structures that predate human civilization. They generate enormous amounts of energy. They operate on precise mechanical cycles that are increasing in intensity. They're connected by tunnel networks extending dozens of miles into Earth's crust. They're surrounded by engineered biological systems with built-in control mechanisms. And they're responding to something: solar cycles, magnetic field changes, astronomical alignments. Something in our cosmic environment is communicating with whatever is down there. The governments of the world know this. They've been watching these structures for at least 66 years. They've seen the same evidence Glacier 7 compiled. And their response has been to restrict access, classify the research, and develop sterilization protocols. They're not preparing for a discovery. They're preparing for an emergence. Think about what the AI's predictions mean. Surface manifestations in October 2025. Something that has remained hidden for millions of years is about to become visible, undeniable. What could force the governments of 54 nations to cooperate on a cover-up of this magnitude? What could be threatening enough to justify terminal sterilization options? What emerges from beneath 3 miles of ice after lying dormant for 34 million years? The AI couldn't answer those questions. But it could tell us this: whatever is down there, it's not natural. It was built. It has a purpose, and that purpose is about to be fulfilled. Some researchers believe the structures are an ancient archive, a library of knowledge left by a civilization that existed before the ice. A gift, waiting to be discovered when humanity was ready. Others believe they're a warning system, automated installations designed to alert us about some approaching cosmic threat. A message written in heat and electromagnetic pulses, waiting for us to decode it. But there's a third possibility, one that the governments seem to be taking seriously based on their response. One that the AI's analysis keeps pointing toward. These structures aren't passive. They're not waiting to be discovered. They're waiting to activate. And we're not the audience for whatever is about to happen. We're just witnesses, or obstacles, or possibly resources. So where does this leave us? Glacier 7 is offline. The researchers have been scattered or silenced. The restricted zone covers the structures like a quarantine boundary. And somewhere beneath the ice, mechanical systems are powering up for an event that hasn't occurred in millions of years. You might be wondering if any of this is true. I've shown you the evidence. Peer-reviewed papers that were published before the classification orders came down. Satellite data that anyone can request through public archives. Seismic readings from international monitoring networks. The AI's analysis exists, even if it's now locked behind government security protocols. but here's what you can verify yourself. In October 2025, watch Antarctica. Watch for unusual seismic activity reported from the British Antarctic Survey or the Antarctic research stations that publish their data publicly. Watch for unexplained atmospheric disturbances. Watch for any sudden closures of research stations or evacuation of personnel. If Glacier 7's predictions are accurate, we're going to see evidence of something that governments can't hide. Not this time. Not when it's visible from space. And if the AI is wrong, well, that might be even more disturbing, because it would mean the governments are treating these structures as an immediate threat based on information we haven't been shown, based on evidence that made 54 nations agree to military containment protocols and sterilization options. Either way, something is happening beneath Antarctica. Something that artificial intelligence discovered by seeing patterns that human researchers missed. Something that has been operating in the darkness for millions of years. The truth is terrifying, not because of what we've learned, but because of what we're about to learn. I'll be watching in October. I suggest you do the same. Because the mystery of Antarctica isn't solved. It's just beginning.